Annenberg Media.
The National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Science Foundation. In Mexico, the abandoned temple of a Maya king reveals an ancient response to the universal problem of death. Nearby, a descendant of the Maya kingdoms still enters the world of dreams to heal the animal soul of a sick patient. Worlds away, the fate of ancient Rome depends on the virginity of a Vestal priestess. As his empire crumbles, a desperate ruler elevates a foreign cult to the rank of state religion. From the ruins of Christian Rome to the age-old rituals of modern Guatemala, clues emerge out of the past that help reconstruct the spirit world of the ancients. In the Copan River Valley of western Honduras stand the ruins of an ancient Maya kingdom. In their search to understand the past, archaeologists discovered a puzzling set of carved symbols.
Es mano. Yeah. Su brazo está aquí y aquí la cabeza, yo creo.
Some parts of ancient life are easier to interpret than others.
There's his ear. I see his ear and his shoulder.
Tool fragments could tell archaeologists how those who once lived here earned their living.
There's his. He's got a pectoral piece there. You see?
One of those stars.
He's got some kind of necklace or pectoral.
Sleeping benches and room layout could reveal family structure. But this was neither a crafts workshop nor a residence.
Boy, this is the big surprise. Almost every panel is different.
Archaeologist William Sanders has spent his career reconstructing the economics and politics of ancient societies.
Look at that. I'm sure
Every block is different so far.
it sure looks like it to me. It sure looks like that emerald.
With David Webster, he has excavated many buildings once abandoned by the ancient Maya. But today, he encounters something new and different.
You see, if that is some creature, some mythical creature looking that way, isn't that what you're saying? Like a bird?
Yeah, it's a bird.
Then
That's a sky bird.
there's probably another two-headed being that's being represented.
Sanders and Webster have encountered the supernatural world of the ancient Maya, a difficult problem for a modern scientist.
Then what's this over here?
1,000 years after they were carved in stone, these spirits elude the archaeologists.
So maybe it represents the sky, some sky monster, and then you've got the double heads at each end. And then this figure here, I don't know who that is.
Archaeologists try to interpret the unique beliefs of the vanished Maya civilization by seeking the universal functions of all religions. Nestled among the volcanoes of highland Guatemala is the town of Momostenango, 150 miles to the west of the ruins in Copan. Saturday in the town square. Living descendants of the ancient Maya gather for a festival. Some don masks with European features to mimic the Spaniards who conquered their society in the 16th century. But ancient religious customs survive here, even on the doorstep of the conqueror's house of worship. The Roman Catholic Church is now the spiritual center of a society that once worshiped Native American gods. The Maya have adopted new symbols and rituals, in part because Christianity fulfills the same needs as their old religion. In fact, all religions serve the same functions. They help people cope with the uncertainties of life and death. They explain the mysteries of the supernatural and the meaning of the soul. All religions define the place of humans in the cosmos and reinforce social and political values. Anthropologists think that even the most exotic religious beliefs serve at least one of these universal functions. Maya archaeologists have an additional advantage. They can turn to the living descendants of the ancient Maya civilization, still farming and trading in towns like Momos Tenango. Texas A&M anthropologist Duncan Earle is here searching for traditional religious rituals. He heads for the home of an old acquaintance. High on a hillside is the home of a Maya holy man named Andres Shilok. His extended family lives in the same compound. His son, Angel Shilok, weaves wool blankets on the front porch of the Shilok house. But today, when Earl arrives, Angel greets him with bad news. Andres, his father, was recently stricken by a nearly paralyzing illness. A doctor came to examine Andres and left without a diagnosis or a cure. Now Andres is about to take matters into his own hands, employing an ancient means of determining personal fate called divining. Andres is a shaman, an intermediary with the supernatural who performs vital social functions. Like shamans around the world, Andres is credited with powers to heal the sick, to interpret dreams and foretell the future. Usually, shamans provide their services to other members of the community. Now, Andres must divine for his own life. His tools include a bundle of sacred seeds and crystals. Andres selects a handful, a random number. He then divides the seeds into groups of 4. Each group corresponds to a different day on an ancient 260-day calendar. Each day has a number up to 13 when they repeat. Each day is ruled by one of 20 different qualities or spirits, such as the monkey or the dawn. Andres starts counting from the first day of his illness, 10 mount. The divination will be based on the last day, the final group of seeds. The beads run out on 1 ka'at, which translates loosely as burning bundles of incense. It refers to the Maya rite for praying to their gods.
He hasn't been going and completing his obligations because he hasn't been able to walk around. And he says, yes, I can speak my words out of my mouth, but if I'm not there in front of the shrines, if I can't offer up the candles and incense, then it will get worse and worse and worse for him. The problem that he's just divined for himself now is that he needed someone else to go and do the prayers for him.
Andres repeats the divination, but the outcome is the same. He must find help to make offerings at a mountain shrine. If not, he will die. Explaining misfortune is a function of all religions. Anthropologists discover these universal needs of the spirit primarily through living cultures like the Maya. But some ancient societies, like Rome, also revealed the universal functions of religion. Imperial Rome, where archaeology converges with written history. Where gods of the pantheon were glorified in art and literature. Apollo, the god of light, poetry, and music. Diana, goddess of the moon, of childbirth and the hunt. And king of all gods, Jupiter Optimus Maximus. Today, scholars study Roman religion in the written records of the ancient mythology. Rome was founded by Romulus, abandoned at birth with his twin brother Remus. They were nursed by the legendary she-wolf. Such is the written legend. But sometimes scholars get a clearer picture of the past by reading between the lines. According to ancient documents, the Romans believed that their fortunes were determined here at a temple to the goddess Vesta. Vesta was the protector of the Roman hearth. Within her temple burned Rome's eternal flame. Mary Beard is a specialist in Roman religion.
The cult of the goddess Vesta was maintained by 6 priestesses. Now, we know from Roman literature that these women were drawn from the elite families of Rome and that they entered this priesthood early. They were chosen between the ages of about 6 and 10, and they served in it for at least 30 years.
The priestesses were called Vestals. They lived in these houses adjacent to the temple to guard the sacred flame.
The most important rule of this cult was that the priestesses should be virgins. If they lost their virginity, they were put to death. They were loaded up on a funeral bier and taken from the Roman Forum to an underground chamber some way away, and there they were buried alive.
Historians have discovered an intriguing pattern in the dates of these burials. In those years when Rome was vulnerable to military defeat, more Vestals were put to death.
Now, it might, of course, be the case that Vestals were more inclined to be naughty when the state was under threat, but that doesn't seem terribly likely. It's much more likely that those accusations against the Vestals are actually a direct response to the danger the state was in. The virginity of the Vestals was seen as a symbol of the state's prosperity. Just as the maintenance of the virginity of the Vestals could be used as a way of explaining Rome's success, so the loss of Vestal virginity could be a way of explaining Rome's failure, Rome's danger.
Every religion explains people's fortunes in a different way. It's just easier for anthropologists to understand in ancient societies that used writing to record their history. Unfortunately, few of the world's vanished societies ever used writing. Those that did, like the Maya, left meager records with only a few precious details. The longest single inscription in the pre-Columbian New World is carved here on the hieroglyphic staircase in Copan. But even the glyphs on these stairs, together with all of the other Maya inscriptions, offer but a tiny fraction of the history left by the Romans. And unlike the Latin of ancient Rome, the hieroglyphs of the Maya are only now being deciphered. These glyphs accompany strange supernatural figures painted on hundreds of pots found in Maya graves. One portrays a human-like creature with the hooves of a deer and the skin of a jaguar. Here, a man's body with 2 heads, one human, one of a beast. The Maya reverence for animals is reflected throughout their ancient artwork. The Scarlet Macaws of the tropical forests were venerated in ancient Copan. Their heads form the markers on the ritual ball court. Monkeys were regarded as patrons of Maya artists and scribes because of their human-like characteristics. A monkey musician emerges from the underworld. Maya kings revered the jaguar for its power and cunning. Beneath this altar in Copan, archaeologists have found the skeletons of more than a dozen large cats sacrificed by the kings. But nothing in nature explains the human-like animals painted on the Maya funeral pots. Deciphering these glyphs would help reveal the essence of the ancient Maya soul. The way a society views the soul is a key to understanding its religion. At Vanderbilt University, archaeologists David Stewart and Stephen Houston study the evidence.
This pottery that we've been looking at has a lot of glyphs on it, and among those glyphs are captions that talk about the imagery on the vessel. In those captions are things we understand, but also a glyph that for a long time eluded decipherment.
What the archaeologists could read was the subject of the sentence. In this case, the name of the accompanying figure, watery jaguar. At the end of the sentence is the name of a title and of a place, Lord of Cybal. What archaeologists could not decipher was the verb, that crucial part of the sentence that might reveal the relationship between the mysterious animals and the Maya royalty. The glyph-covered pottery was found in the southern lowlands, stretching from Palenque and Becan in the north to Copan in the south. While Houston worked to decipher the ancient glyphs, David Stewart was reading about the modern Maya living today in the mountains of Chiapas, Mexico. As in Guatemala, ancient religious rituals here are kept alive by Maya shamans. Shaman Anselmo Perez comes to the house of Juan Lopez, who is sick. The shaman diagnoses illness by pulsing, or as he says, touching blood. According to Anselmo, Lopez has lost part of his soul. All religions recognize a soul, but for the Maya, the soul has two parts. One is holy and resides in the blood. The other is an animal soul that lives outside the body and roams at night. When a person dreams, he can transform into this companion spirit known as the chanul. In the house of Juan Lopez, under Anselmo's supervision, the family prepares for the curing ceremony. They hope to recapture Juan's animal soul and save his life. They construct the most important symbol of the ritual. A corral bed is built to restore Juan's animal companion to its mythical corral in the mountains. Anselmo blesses Juan before sending him to the bed, hoping to re-socialize the wild part of Juan's soul. Juan will spend most of the next 2 weeks here. He will not speak to his family, who will care for him. Only if Juan's chanul, or animal companion, is restored to its mountain corral will Juan be cured. At Vanderbilt University, Stephen Houston continued to study drawings of the pots, unaware of the modern spirit companions. He studied the missing link, the verb glyph on a number of pots. The major part is the logogram, a picture that stands for a complete word. This one was usually divided into 2 halves. On the left, Houston thought he saw a mask or human face. On the right was a pattern from one of the animal paintings. It was the pelt of a jaguar.
I wondered in the course of my research whether this concept embodied by the logogram had something to do with a being that combined both animal and human attributes.
To the logogram, the Maya added phonetic signs called complements. They stand not for whole words, but syllables. Many of the verb glyphs only had one syllable, wa. Other pots had only a second syllable pronounced ya. But on some pots, Houston found both, and from these he coaxed a word.
In Maya writing, if you get two syllables or phonetic signs joined together, you drop the final vowel of the second phonetic sign or syllable. So that in the case of our glyph, the wa and the ya joined together spell Y, the final A being dropped. I began to wonder what Y might mean.
Houston consulted the dictionaries of several Mayan languages and found related definitions in each one. To sleep, to dream.
And in one Maya language, Tzotzil, we even found a word derived from Y, Wayahin, which means animal companion spirit or animal transformation.
At the same time, David Stewart was reading about the modern Maya shamans. He began to wonder, could the images on the pots be related to the Chanul?
As soon as Steve came to me with his decipherment of the Y glyph, it clicked immediately. The Chanul is the animal spirit that actually you see through when you dream. Your animal spirit is wandering around the forest and the mountains. And so in explaining these images on the pots, the Y glyph makes perfect sense.
The archaeologists now read this sentence as, the watery jaguar is the Y of the Lord of Saibal. The dancing jaguar is the Y of the Lord of Yashilan. On royal carvings, the companion souls of Maya kings and queens are shown not as mere animals, but powerful supernatural beings. In Copan, the kings ruled from the top of the Acropolis. According to David Stewart, their prestige came from their spiritual authority. The Y glyph shows that they were powerful shamans.
The origin of the elite class in Mesoamerica, I think, can best be seen as a transformation of the office of, say, religious practitioners long ago into a position that had a lot more political power and eventually into divine kingship. There seems to be no real reference to the Maya kings having much of economic control within their polities. Rather, their power is defined more through the supernatural realm.
Unfortunately, the realm of the king is one of the few clear windows into ancient Maya religion. Only elites could afford permanent temples, artwork, and writing. The Y glyph reveals the ancient belief in an animal part of the Maya soul. But another aspect of the soul was found in the houses of both commoners and elites. Here, the supernatural was always close at hand. Most of the Maya buried their dead close to their houses. Features in this tomb provide a clue to Maya ideas about the afterlife. In each side was a stone niche with a ceramic pot or bowl. Archaeologists think that, like most people, the Maya believed in life after death. Food in these bowls would sustain the spirit on its journey through the afterlife. Other burials raise the same question. Just how did the ancients regard their dead? Once again, archaeologists turn to the living descendants of the ancient Maya. In Momos, Tenango, Guatemala, shaman Andres Shelok is still trying to cure his own illness. His divination with the ritual calendar told him he must increase his offerings to the Maya gods. Andres burns incense and candles for the Catholic saints and for the Maya Earth Lord who rules the skies and the underworld. But to reach these gods, Andres must first contact the spirits of the dead. He calls up his deceased great-grandfather, then his grandfather and his father. He calls up his grandmothers and the original founder of his entire lineage. The Maya are among many in the world who worship their ancestors. Andres hopes that by intensifying his prayers, his ancestors will petition the gods on his behalf. The calendar divination advised getting help from another shaman. Andres wraps the ashes in palm leaves. He asks the shaman to take them to a sacred mountain shrine and pray to the Shilluk ancestors. At the height of Maya civilization, both kings and commoners worshiped their ancestors. Most archaeologists believe that the practice began thousands of years before the rise of the kingdoms. David Webster.
I think that the earliest people that we can call Maya probably had a folk tradition of religion, a little tradition, if you like, that consisted of probably some elements of ancestor worship, but a lot of nature worship, worship of spiritual forces attributed to natural things, sun, moon, animals, plants. We had what anthropologists call basically folk societies, small-scale egalitarian societies without any kind of centralized leadership that was effective. As political and social evolution occurs and you get the emergence of formalized, centralized institutions, not only of politics, but of religion, very often that kind of centralized edifice of religion takes on a lot of elements of the earlier folk tradition and blows them up or changes them in certain ways that especially rulers find desirable, because after all, they're manipulating this kind of emergence of new religious ideas and practices to some degree for their own ends. When these kinds of centralized political systems and their religious institutions break down, very often we find that the original folk traditions have proved very durable and in fact have survived quite intact. And so you can go through the whole process from the little tradition to a kind of amalgam with the big tradition and then break back down to the little tradition again.
Great traditions of the state, such as royal Maya religion or official Christianity, are powerful but fragile. They usually live and die with the state. Little traditions of the household, like ancestor worship, endure. So how did the great traditions evolve? Did ancient political leaders manipulate the little traditions into a new elite religion that reinforced their power? In the ancient Maya city of Palenque, an egalitarian folk society evolved into a chiefdom and finally into a state. Archaeologist Peter Matthews is also an epigrapher, an expert in hieroglyphs. He was among the first to interpret the symbols in this Maya temple. Inside, at the bottom of the temple, was the tomb of Palenque's greatest king, Lord Pakal. In the stairway leading down to the tomb is a good indication of how Maya kings communicated with their ancestors.
The Maya had completely filled in this stairway with dense rubble, and so dense that it took the archaeologists 4 seasons to dig through. As they were digging, they noticed this curious stone tubing going all the way down the edge of the stairway.
The tube was a hollow shaft inside these stones. After the Maya filled in the staircase, The shaft preserved an open channel to the bottom of the temple.
The hollow stone tube descends to this tomb deep down below the temple. And as such, we think that it forms a spiritual link between the living up in the world above and the deceased who was buried in this tomb.
On the lid of the sarcophagus, Pakal is pictured at the moment of his death, poised in the jaws of the earth monster. From his forehead, a symbol emerges. It is the sign of God K, an exclusive patron of Maya dynasties.
We believe that all the Maya did engage in ancestor worship, but it was only the kings for which we have evidence of their turning into gods at the moment of their death. And therefore, obviously, the kings and the royal families were not just revered as ancestors or even revered as royal ancestors, but indeed they were revered as divine beings.
Palenque's religious art sanctified the emergence of new political systems where elites proclaim their special relationships with the gods. William Sanders.
At some time in the evolution of these systems, when you get a state forming out of a chiefdom-like organization, what often happens is that royal lineage, which originally was just one of many lineages that worships its ancestors, creates a whole new religious ideology that tends to make them different from everybody else. They have some special position in the system because they have this set of supernatural beings that they alone can make contact with, intercede for the rest of the population. These become part of a sort of a state religion, you might say.
In Copan, the hieroglyphic staircase and the other temples of the kings mark the center of the state and its religion. But the Maya state included other powerful lineage heads as well. Beyond the Acropolis were the compounds of the nobles. In this one was the elite tomb with its niches and pots. Nearby was the compound of another noble, the one who built the temple with the carved stone bench.
But look, but it's double. No, it's double.
Did this nobleman also have access to powerful gods?
It's just not cut as deeply.
Anyway, the fangs are different, the mouth is different, and then, as you say, that ornament above his head is different.
Sanders and Webster must identify the symbols and find out who ruled Copan when the temple was constructed.
Every block is different. Oh, hi.
Archaeologist Bill Fash arrives from his excavations in the Acropolis.
They're all different. He's got his...
Very nice. Golly, that's Venus there. See that? Big Venus signs.
Where? This on the left?
Yeah, he's got his hand coming out one of the Venus signs.
All right, this is what we were wondering, what that
that's
sign was.
That's the sun god from the looks of it.
This?
No, this guy.
This guy.
Yeah.
But he's got a monkey tail on him.
That's all right. The sun and monkeys are interchangeable as day signs.
Uh-huh.
They're deities.
So the entire theme is supernatural.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like it's celestial beings here. So maybe it's a giant planetary band. Maybe that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, beautiful relief.
Yeah, it is.
Just gorgeous.
Some of the symbols were described by Bishop Diego de Landa, a 16th century Spanish missionary who documented Maya culture. The ancient Maya wrote their own books, but only 4 survived. In them, scholars gradually identified other gods. Archaeologists now recognize many of the symbols on the carved bench. At each end is the head of a mythical bird. Its body includes the moon, the sun of the day sky, the symbol of holiness, the sun at night, and the planet Venus. It's called a sky band or celestial monster. Some have likened it to the Milky Way as it stretches from one horizon to the other. The Maya believed in a heaven with 13 different layers, where the celestial gods journeyed to signal the change of seasons and the optimum time to wage war. Models of the universe are called cosmologies, and they're important to all religions. The archaeologists want to reconstruct the rest of the Maya cosmos to see how the bench fits into the ancient religion. They begin below the bench. It was supported by 4 carved figures. With their arms or shoulders, they hold up the sky band. In the 16th century, the Maya told their Spanish conquerors of gods who held up the sky. Duncan Earle believes these gods of the Maya great tradition are still worshipped. He follows Angel Xiloc to view the sacred mountains and their gods.
Es el tamango, que le llamamos Uxucutkaj.
In the south are the deities of the 4 corners of the sky. Y aquí abajo,
Es el Quilajá, donde releva el Qij, donde sale el sol. Es el pipil.
el pipil,
Sí,
que se llama en
es el Uxucutulejo.
Escutuleo. Y aquí por Socop.
Y el Socop. Socop, donde cae el sol. Qij, Uqajib al Qij.
He says there are 4 pillars that hold up the sky, and they're like the 4 cardinal points.
Rezar, pues, se reza.
The modern Maya called them by a different name, but they are likely the same gods carved below the skyband bench. In the ancient cosmology, they were known as Powhatuns. Each aspect of the god and its cardinal direction was associated with a different color. Deep beneath the hieroglyphic staircase in Copan, archaeologists found an image that reveals how the ancient Maya must have imagined the earth. Bill Fash and a team of workers are searching for further evidence of early Maya culture. Each king had built his temples and palaces on top of the structures of his predecessor. The ruins at this level date to the 5th century AD, 300 years earlier than the buildings at the top.
As we were digging our tunnels into this very early part of the Copan Acropolis, we were elated to find that the backside of this temple contained some imagery still preserved in stucco and painted red. The first symbol that we could decipher was that of these water lily leaves. So that tells us that this is a watery environment. We can identify this creature by this very large tooth and this huge mouth. This is a crocodile.
Maya books written after the Spanish conquest describe the world to be the back of a giant crocodile, afloat in a great ocean. Below the surface was the Maya underworld, called Xibalba. A treacherous domain of 9 layers, it was the home of the earth monsters and the ancestors. Now that the archaeologists had reconstructed a picture of the Maya cosmos, they could use their model to solve an archaeological puzzle. In the same compound with the elite tomb were houses with the same kind of niches. In the niches were pots, similar to those in the grave. According to Maya cosmology, the dead emerged at night when they thought the heavens traveled beneath the earth, and the underworld emerged from below. With that in mind, some archaeologists believe these offerings were to nourish the powerful spirits of the dead as they returned to protect their households at night. Reconstructing the ancient cosmology also added to our understanding of Copan's state religion. This is the stela of a king named 18 Rabbit. When he dedicated this self-portrait, he buried sacred offerings beneath the monument. Bill Fash.
During the 1930s, the Carnegie Institution expeditions dug under a number of the Copan stelae and found a number of offerings, including objects just like these. They're made of limestone. A number of them come to a point like this. These are stalactites.
The stalactites were taken from caves. portals to the underworld in the surrounding mountains where the Maya worshiped their ancestors. According to Bill Fash, the offering paid homage to an age-old tradition. But on top of the Acropolis, 18 Rabbit gave new meaning to the power of the symbol.
This is Temple 22, one of the largest and most imposing monuments in the Copan Acropolis. On each of its four corners are some very large masks that are explicit about what the building was all about. There are eyebrows and eyes with fancy eyelids and cheeks, huge snouts and large extended foreheads on these animals or monsters that are on each of the corners. But the most important part are these symbols right here. This one reads tun, or stone, and this large sort of rounded or crenellated eyebrow reads wheats, which means mountain. Together they read tun wheats, or stone mountain. What this tells us is that King 18 Rabbit was powerful enough to build his own man-made stone mountain here in the center of the Acropolis to worship his ancestors, rather than having to hike up to some mountain way up there and find a cave that was appropriate for that purpose.
The mountain itself was the massive construction, the Acropolis and the palace temple that sat on top of it. The cave was the room inside. Its doorway is a Maya cosmogram. At the bottom is the underworld, the land of the dead, the domain of the ancestors. Seated on the surface of the world were the Powhatuns, the sky-bearers who hold the heavens on their shoulders. The heavens were represented by the sky dragon. In the west was the sign of Venus as the evening star. In the east is the Ki'in sign in the forehead of the morning sun. Just as King Pakal elevated the little tradition of ancestor worship to validate his rule in Palenque, 18 Rabbit exploited the age-old Maya cosmology to reinforce his dominion over Copan.
When 18 Rabbit stood in the center of this cosmogram, he was placing himself literally in the center of the Maya universe. He was at the perfect spot to make rites in honor of his ancestors and to ask their help in making sure that the sun would rise each morning and set each evening, to make sure that the rains would be on time, that they would be plentiful, and to ask their help in making sure that his people and his kingdom would prosper.
One of the rites practiced inside the stone mountain was royal bloodletting. With an obsidian blade or the spine of a stingray, men cut their genitals. Women, like this queen of a Maya state in Mexico, drew ropes of thorns through their tongues. In both cases, the goal was to let blood, the source of holiness. In blood was the Maya soul. A bowl of bark paper soaked up the royal blood. Often, the paper was burned in a public ceremony. In this carving, the smoke transformed into the body of a mythical creature called the Vision Serpent. Emerging from its mouth is the patron of royal ancestors, God K, the same deity found on the sarcophagus of King Pakal in Palenque. Through bloodletting, Maya royalty anointed the kingdom with holiness and called up a powerful Maya god. When a king performed his rituals atop the pyramids, thousands of worshippers probably thought he was a god. Maya religion embodied three common properties of all religions. It helped people cope with the uncertainties of life and death. It explained the origin and workings of the universe. And Maya religion reinforced the social values and political structure of society. A state religion gradually evolved to support the political power of the kings. Scholars discovered the political functions of religion in societies like ancient Rome. Evidence of the little tradition in Roman religion can be seen in this commoner's house. Here, people worship the spirits of the household called lares. The great traditions of the Roman Republic reflected the ambitions of the upper classes. In the first few centuries before Christ, the state religion of Rome reinforced a tenuous power sharing among Rome's wealthy aristocrats. They were called senators. They built temples here to show their special favor with the gods. No one senator was allowed more power than his peers. After a series of bloody civil wars, all that changed when one senator consolidated the power of the state. He took the name Augustus. From his house on the Palatine Hill, Augustus Caesar brought immediate changes to the state religion. Historian Mary Beard.
One of the most interesting things that Augustus did was include inside his house a shrine and a statue of the goddess Vesta. By giving her an additional home in his own house, Augustus was making a claim that there was now another and possibly competing centre to the state, and that centre was his own house.
To celebrate his Civil War victory, Augustus built a huge new forum and a temple to the god Mars. He built the monuments to avenge the death of Julius Caesar, his slain adoptive father. And so Augustus used Mars to justify his slaughter of thousands of fellow Romans. He seized control of many religious institutions and became the first political leader to reign as Pontifex Maximus, Rome's supreme religious figure. Next to his home, Augustus built a grand temple to his patron, the god Apollo.
Those reforms add up to something quite new, a new stage in the identification of a political leader with the divine. Never before had any individual at Rome held such religious power.
In Copan, King 18 Rabbit also enjoyed unprecedented religious and political authority. And like the Roman senators, the Maya lineage heads were also competing for power. In AD 738, the nobles seized a new opportunity. The royal dynasty suffered a major crisis in faith when 18 Rabbit was captured by a rival state and decapitated. Archaeologists have just restored the nobleman's temple under a roof. More importantly, they have dated the Skyban bench to a time after the death of 18 Rabbit. David Stewart sees a familiar message. The goddess, rabbit, and crescent of the moon represent north. The day sun rises in the east, and the sun of night sets in the west. The scorpion tail of the Venus god means south.
Given these symbols, we can see that the figure or ruler who would have been sitting where I'm sitting now, perhaps a lineage head, was really placing himself in the center of the Maya universe. So this lesser noble within the Copan Valley was making a claim that really 18 Rabbit was able to do before. He was showing himself really with these sacred symbols that before had been reserved for Maya kings.
Archaeologists find that religion is usually conservative, changing slowly over time. But when political relationships change suddenly, religion can quickly evolve to reinforce that change. A king named Yaxpac greatly altered the Maya religion after the death of 18 Rabbit, according to archaeologist Bill Fash.
18 Rabbit was perhaps the most powerful king in Copan's history. Yet when you look at his religious symbolism, what you see is a man in harmony with the forces of nature, with the ancestral spirits, and with his people. By contrast, Yaxpac, the last king, was running scared. He had some tremendous competition from the noble lineage heads. He had some terrible economic problems. And when you look at his religious art, you see a man desperately manipulating religion to project the royal authority that was in fact slipping away.
Yaxpac constructed one of the earliest Maya skull racks. It was meant to demonstrate his power over life and death. Also in ruins are the jaws and teeth of a powerful military deity. The goggle-eyed Tlaloc warrior was displayed by several of the last Copan kings. But no one exploited the Tlaloc like Yashpak. Archaeologists are still reconstructing sculpture fragments from at least 7 different types of Tlaloc masks that once adorned this pyramid. But this was not a god that emerged from the religion of the Maya. For centuries, the Tlaloc god had been worshipped hundreds of miles away in the great city of Teotihuacan, in the Valley of Mexico. The Maya kings actually imported the Tlaloc from Teotihuacan to distinguish themselves from their competitors. But even this appeal to new and exotic deities could not prevent the collapse of the Maya states in the 9th century AD. The importation of gods was common around the world. 500 years before Copan fell, the Roman state was also disintegrating. The mighty empire was pushed to the breaking point by foreign invasions and civil wars. Exotic religious cults imported from Rome's conquered territories attracted ever larger followings. Mithras from Persia, Isis from the Nile. One such cult worshipped here in the Roman suburb of Ostia. Its identity would still be a mystery if not for one small clue carved in a stone block that once sat atop these marble columns. Workmen now preserve one of the oldest signs of a religion that was to change world history. Here was the mark of Cairo, an ancient version of the Christian cross. The Romans persecuted the early Christians because they would not tolerate the deities of the pantheon. But the fate of the Christians was changed forever when the Emperor Constantine declared their faith the official state religion in AD 313. Did Constantine truly embrace the Christian vision? Or, like Yashpak and Copan, did he elevate a foreign deity in a desperate attempt to bolster his disintegrating state? No one will ever know. The Roman Empire crumbled and fell, but not before it imparted its organizational structure to the burgeoning Catholic Church. Christianity quickly became the official religion of virtually every state in Europe. In the New World, 16th century Spaniards converted the surviving Maya to Christianity. The growing empire justified its political ambitions with the belief that it was saving souls. Many of the Maya took up the great traditions of Europe, apparently praying to the Christian symbols. But archaeologists have now discovered a Maya symbol that suggests a more complex explanation. Towering over King Pakal, the symbol dominated his sarcophagus at Palenque. Early archaeologists named this Palenque building after a similar image found inside. They called it the Temple of the Foliated Cross. Duncan Earle.
The Christian cross was attractive to the Mayas because of the similarity between its form and Maya cosmology. For example, there's an upper realm and there's a lower realm, and there's where the sun rises and where the sun goes out. And this concept of a cruciform, whether it's standing or lying down, is very similar to concepts that still exist amongst the Maya today.
In Momos Dinango, the shaman arrives at the mountain shrine. He has come on behalf of Andres Shilok, who is too ill to make the journey himself. Joining the ashes of the private offering with the fires of the ancient spirits, the shaman calls up the ancestors of the Shilok lineage. He prays to the deceased grandparents and great-grandparents of his stricken friend. Today is 8 Monkey, the holiest day in the ancient Maya calendar. A sacred chorus echoes the individual prayers. Hundreds of Maya shamans pray to their own deceased ancestors. They pray to the founders of their village as they have prayed for thousands of years. Since the dawn of their culture, the Maya have followed their age-old beliefs. The common people have seen kingdoms rise and fall. They have endured a conquering army and a foreign faith. Although one great tradition replaced another, an ancient folk religion lives on to fulfill the timeless needs of the human spirit. Out of the past, the little traditions of these Native Americans resist for now the powerful pressures of the modern world.
Annenberg Media.
The National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Science Foundation.
For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.